When the storm will stop and the noise goes down, the lights go up in the middle of town. When the streets are gone and there's no...
Hey friends,
I'm JB,
and I'm Sarah.
and this is the Go Podcast.
When the storm will stop and the noise goes down, the lights...
Hello, everybody.
Hey friends,
This is JB,
this is Sarah.
and you probably already knew that because this is the Go Podcast with JB and Sarah.
No way.
Yeah, and this is episode 14
Yep, of season 2.
of season 2, but season 2 is not really official because it's not on iTunes.
Yeah,
But
it's fine.
It's
fine.
episode 3 of season 2.
Yes. And we are just super excited that you decided to listen.
Yeah, thank you so much. We actually, just this past weekend, we hit 2,000 downloads.
Yeah, we did. We were really excited about that.
We are excited about it. Then I look at some of these other podcasts that I listen to, and they're like, 10 million downloads. Let's celebrate.
You know what? You got to just run in your own lane. You know?
Yeah,
And
we're gonna
2,000
run.
For us is
We're gonna run
awesome.
we're gonna power walk in our bike lane.
The mental image I just had of that was just too great.
Anyway,
oh my goodness.
so tonight was a crazy night.
Yes, so I cannot believe we're even recording a podcast. I figured we'd just be like, all right, another day. But
We'd already pushed it off once
yes.
because I forgot my computer charger.
Yeah, and then life just kind of happened. So I'm glad we're doing it. I'm glad that we are, even though our evening included a lot of cleanup.
Yep.
So I got home from the gym. I was getting ready. Man, can I say that again?
Dude, just bask in that.
I got home from the gym. By the way, I ran too much because I was listening to another podcast that was just so fantastic that I kind of lost track of time, which has never in my life happened.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, now that I'm done, like the humble brag, whatever, pull into the driveway and the garage door's up. And I'm like, I did not leave that up. Did I leave that up?
Nope, you
Then I
didn't.
get a phone call, and very, very calm Jonathan says, hey, are you still at the gym? I'm like, no, I just got home. Like, just pulling in. What's up? It's like, I need your help.
Big disaster.
Big disaster. I knew he would be freaking out if it was a kid thing. So I knew that it was like, kids were safe. Everything was fine. But like, tell him what happened.
So earlier, our washing machine was kind of malfunctioning. So
Correct.
Sarah went to investigate. It's a
Yep.
front loader. She was like, it's giving us this notification. I don't know what it means. She's like, I'm going to go check it. We thought maybe it was off balance. So she was going to open it up and kind of sift through the clothes and shake them up and close it and restart it. Well, she went down there and it was unlocked, but full of water. So she opens the door and she's like, help, help. And water's pouring out. So I run down, we close it. Then
And You said that you appreciated it because I made you like feel needed when you got home from work, right?
something like that.
what
I'd
I
been home
thought.
like 10 minutes and this happened. So small cleanup, I'd say 5 to 10 gallons of water, maybe. during that
I have
cleanup.
No measure.
So got that cleaned up. Sarah left. So then while she was gone, I was like, I'm going to go try to fix it. And tried one thing after another. It ended up, I was trying to suction water out of it with our shop vac through the drain hose. It ended up filling up completely, so full that it started overflowing through places it shouldn't be overflowing water from.
Oh my goodness.
And then, so obviously I shut it down. I said, shut the water off. I was like, nope, no way, we're done. Then I'm sitting there, like crouching in front of it, talking to our oldest, and all of a sudden the door just like explodes open because of water pressure, and water's flooding into our laundry room. And I'm screaming, who knows what. I slam the door
Did you
shut.
say any bad words in front of our child?
Cannot confirm or deny that, and I don't think he can either, because at this point I don't know what he knows is bad words or not.
Oh yeah, okay. Maybe we're in the clear.
But He does say shoot a lot though when he's playing PlayStation.
We got to work on that.
But so I slam the door shut. There's clothes hanging out because it just got forced open. So I'm like I have to reopen it, and more water comes out, and I push the clothes back in there, and I get it shut, and it's still kind of dripping, but it's okay. But I'm like in water, like standing in at least an inch of water, and it's everywhere. It's like flooding out of our laundry room into like our little like landing mud room kind of deal.
That's our foyer.
That's our
Fancy foyer.
yes, it's our foyer. So it's at the bottom of our steps. So I know water can't go up the steps, which that's
Very
a win.
smart, yeah.
So I start cleaning it up with the shop vac, and then I was like, I don't need to call Sarah right now. Like, there's nothing she can do from the gym. Like, there's
That's
just
very
not.
kind.
So then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna look in the garage and I'm gonna look in the basement because our garage and our basement are on either side of our laundry room. And I look in there, and our basement is just covered in water also.
And our basement is filled with all of our boxes of things we couldn't fit in our house.
Other
from
half of
move.
our belongings.
Yeah, pretty much half.
So then it just became Operation Get Stuff Out of the Basement and out of the cardboard boxes that were on the ground. And
I still can't believe how calm you were when you called.
oh my goodness. Guys, the Holy Spirit worked in me
The
tonight.
Holy Spirit was present
I
and well.
I did not say any bad words that I can recall that my children heard. It didn't ruin my night completely.
Yeah,
I'm actually in a fairly good mood right now. But
which is just
it's
insane.
crazy. So that was our night.
It was.
It was nuts.
It was crazy. So we got it cleaned up and then got the boys to bed. Bowen was in charge upstairs, and he was very happy. He's
He
our
was.
oldest.
He likes being in charge.
Being in charge. So that was the first thing he told me was, "Mom, I'm in charge." I'm like, "Okay, great." So they got to bed, and now we're doing this podcast. And what are we talking about tonight?
We are
Today,
talking
tomorrow.
about, this is kind of a piggyback a little bit off of our last episode. Our last episode was the things we've learned in our first 10 years of marriage. Tonight is things we've learned in the first 10 years of ministry.
Yes, I think it's going to be a fun one. I think you're going to enjoy it. There's a lot of good memories mixed in here.
Mm-hmm.
So we learned some funny things up front.
Yes.
So
I think it would be good to start with just kind of how we've served, where we've served in ministry.
yes.
So we spent the first 3.5 years of our ministry career, ministry life, whatever you want to call it. We ran a ministry called Campus Life, and it's through a large organization called Youth for Christ, parachurch organization. The objective is to get into a local school, minister to the students there, build relationships, have basically like a youth group type meeting, and then the goal is to push them towards a local youth group at a local church. Connect them with the pastors and the volunteers there, and then try to win their friends and get them to come.
It's very evangelism.
Evangelistic. You're right the first time. It was good.
Yes, that's the focus of that ministry. We were just starting out and just figuring out how ministry worked and all of that, and so that was a really cool season for us. We had the support that we needed and the authority that we needed and all those things, and it was a great place to start.
Really good. It was a ministry we both grew up in high school, and then we got to lead at Sarah's alma mater.
Yep.
So that was fun. Next season, church ministry. We spent 6.5 years at a church in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Yep.
And so that was, I'd say the best season of our life. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, because I was pregnant when we moved up there, and so then we had 3 babies while we lived there. I did grad school, started counseling, all of that. So
Wrote
there's
a
just
book.
a lot of
Did all this kind of stuff.
a lot of like
Started a coffee shop.
things. Stop.
Sorry.
There's just a lot of things that were jam-packed into that season. And then we also had this life group that was very supportive of us and just kind of our anchor, our base throughout that season. That started right when we got there, and that was awesome. So great season.
And so like we told you a couple episodes ago, we recently moved to the Atlanta, Georgia area, and we are at a church here. and serving in the middle school ministry here. So
Yeah.
it's been 10 years of ministry. It's been crazy. It's been awesome. It's been super fun, stressful, all the adjectives.
All the things.
So we just wanted to kind of go like some serious things, some not so serious, kind of funny, ridiculous things that we've learned throughout this time that we've spent in ministry. Similar to the marriage list that we had, this isn't like, hey, we're the authority on all things ministry by any stretch of the imagination. It's just hey, here's some things that we put into a list that we've collected over the 10 years we've been doing this.
Correct.
Sarah, do you want to lead us off here?
Yeah, so let's start on the lighter side. So I have learned in ministry that 15-passenger vans love curbs.
Something like that.
Yes, they do. I remember teasing our youth leaders for hitting curbs with the 15-passenger vans on mission trips, and then
I remember a
I
certain youth
became
pastor
that youth leader.
intentionally hit curbs.
You think so?
John Mendenhall
You
hit
know what?
curbs and yelled curb check, and then slammed on the brakes.
That's true. He did do that. Yeah.
But I also remember a group of boys riding in your van at GoMad in a parking garage, shouting, "Female driver, no survivors."
Yeah, I almost parked the van and just climbed back.
You were a really
the
good sport
seats.
about it, but I'm pretty sure you were close to tears in that situation.
I think I was because I couldn't get out of the parking garage.
Yes, you were stuck.
I
It
couldn't
was like
do
a
it.
73-point turnaround.
And then this kid that didn't even have his license was yelling at me. It was a very traumatic experience. I'm glad I lived through it.
Yeah, congratulations. All right, so this one, it's about a student that's very near and dear to my heart, and he will know exactly who he is when he listens to this. But teeth break when they hit the gym floor.
Ooh, yes, they do.
So we did a crazy game one time where you put on a hoodie, an oversized hoodie, put your legs through the arms, and then you do an obstacle course. That sounds so bad.
When you say it.
when I explain it like that,
everyone knows what's happening next.
they're like,
but-
"You're an idiot." So one of these guys, he got on one of those little gym class scooters, and he went forward. The scooter did not, and his teeth hit the floor and
Yeah.
broke one of his front teeth.
He was the first student to go.
Yep, very first one.
So thankfully not.
He volunteered. We didn't force him. That's good.
That is true. And
Yep.
his mom was great about it.
They were awesome.
Really sorry that happened.
Yeah, I was thankful for church insurance at that point in time.
Yeah, our church started incident reports in that season, and the name Baldwin was in every
Like 5
one.
of 6, the
Oh,
first ones.
yep.
Yeah, that was good.
Leaving our mark. I think another thing I learned that there is no tired like youth ministry tired. Like after a youth mission trip or a youth trip in general,
Mm-hmm.
it is so tiring. Now, I think pregnancy tired might beat it, but youth
I wouldn't
ministry is a second.
I remember taking high schoolers on a middle school mission trip, and they probably took 4 naps a day. They're like, "JB, I need to go take a nap." I'm like, "Go, you need to rest."
Didn't you sleep for 18 hours or something? Was it
Yeah,
18
that was
hours?
after Campus Life spring break trip. Yep, I was really tired.
That was crazy.
If you are going to be in youth ministry, you need to know how to change a tire.
If you are on a mission trip with Jonathan, you need to know how to change a tire. You're cursed.
Yes, so one summer we took 2 different trips. I went with our high schoolers to Florida and our middle schoolers to Cincinnati, and we pulled a trailer both trips, and both trips the trailer tire blew out and we were stranded on the side of the road. 2 separate trailers, 2 separate cities. I wasn't driving both of them. I was just with the group on the second one, but
It's got to be
Yeah.
you.
it has to be. All right, let's move into some of our more serious ones.
Yeah, there was something I learned very early on in ministry, and I see it now as a merciful gift from God that I learned this so early. But to share it, I need to share the story, kind of what happened behind it. So we started doing Campus Life ministry, and a couple months into it, somebody reached out to me on Facebook. It was a friend of a friend, and they said, hey, I know that you're in ministry. I need somebody to talk to. Would you be willing to text with me? And I'm like, super excited.
I was going to say, we were like fresh in
At this
ministry.
point-
This is awesome. Ministry opportunity.
Yeah, like I'm here, anywhere, everywhere. I am here to serve Jesus.
Yep.
And so I started texting with her and just basic issues, boyfriend problems, things like that. And her and I would text, and didn't start out as a lot, but then she kept having these awful things happen to her. And she would text me more and more, and it started to really impact my life.
Yep.
So it was impacting my school, it was impacting my sleep. She was calling me at 2 a.m. With different things.
And you were very
then
concerned about her.
very, very concerned, and just feeling so responsible and all of this. And so finally, talked with Jonathan and all that, and decided that I needed to call her mom. Even though she was she was in college as well. She was just a few years younger than us. I still felt like, okay, what she's talking about, abuse from her boyfriend, doing hard drugs, all of that, I think that her parents
need to
need
get parents
know.
involved for sure.
So, I make the phone call. I'm super nervous, and I politely tell this lady I've never met, hey, this is what your daughter told me, and I don't think I can help her anymore, but I need to tell you. I need you to be involved in this. And this woman, she just took a deep sigh, like, okay, I hate to tell you this, but my daughter's not on drugs, and she's not abusive, or she's not being abused, but she is really struggling with lying to people, and she wants that care from other people, and so she reaches out to people to get that care from them, and she'll lie to get it. And I was so shocked and stunned and just blown away that happened the way that it did, and I hurt for her just as bad as I did when I thought all this other stuff was going on, because that's a serious thing that she was dealing with.
We almost we didn't believe the mom at first. We're like, okay, she's lying to you,
Right.
she's actually doing this stuff.
I
And
forgot that part. Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, then it turned out most of that stuff she had told you wasn't true,
right.
and she was just a compulsive liar.
I think this is how God works too. Of if I just looked at that story, I'd be like, wow, that's really mean. Like this eager person ready to serve Jesus, and she gets smacked in the face right out the gate.
Mm-hmm. And
I think now I'm learning, and throughout our time in ministry, how God has prepared us so well before we've gotten to the next thing, that He prepared me for what I was going to need in youth ministry, especially ministering to teenage girls. I learned that lesson so quick, because that hurt so bad that I was like, I'm going to have boundaries when I serve, and I'm going to help, but I'm not going to save. And that was huge for me. So that's something I learned early on. Jonathan, what about you? What's something you've learned in the last 10 years?
When you're in ministry, pride can ruin you.
That's a good one.
I think it's just so important to learn humility early on. That doesn't mean you're the most humble person in the world, but to learn it and to practice it, because I think humility is something you learn, but it's also something you can practice. Our boys have actually learned this lesson, but then they use it in ways that it shouldn't be used. Like, oh, I'm last, you beat me, but the last should be first.
They do say that.
So, but there is ways, just putting others first in simple ways. And I think just learning that early on is important, because there's going to be situations where you are humbled in ministry. Mm-hmm. And if you continually take pride, and we could tie in some of our other ones in this too, if you take pride in the work that you're doing and aren't giving the proper credit to God, that ministry is not going to last. I mean, it's built on you. If you're the one that's taking the credit for it, and you're excelling because of what you're that's not a ministry built on God,
Jesus.
on Jesus, and it's not a ministry that's going to last. And it's not
going to rise and fall with you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when you leave and go to the next thing, it's gonna collapse with you.
I've heard this where it's not if you're humble or if you're prideful, but it's almost as if there's a clock and there's 12 hours of a day, and you were humble 8 hours of the day, but not the full. And I like that perspective because I think that all of us struggle with pride.
Oh, yeah.
And humility is practiced, and it is something that I don't think we ever arrive at. I think some people might have more of a tendency to be humble than others, but I like that approach because it feels like something you can try to improve, but not feel like you have to hit it perfectly.
Yeah. Yep.
Something I've learned that has been very important to ministry for me is to never assume with students.
What do you
And
mean by that?
What I mean by that, especially in their faith journey. So if you are spiritually discipling a student, you should know where they are. How do you disciple a student if you don't know if they're saved or not, if they've given their lives to Christ? And sometimes I would assume, based on students' parents, that they were surrendered to Christ. Sometimes I would assume, based on the answers that they would give in small group, that they were. But it took direct conversation, typically one-on-one, to find out where a student really was. And that's important because we can't move people forward. We can't help them take the next step if we have no clue where they are. So I would say never assume.
That's good.
And it's important to ask in kind ways in ministry settings.
That's good. Another thing that I've learned, we'll do one more serious one and then jump into some of the more fun ones. But the word no could be the most important word you learn to say. Now, there's caveat to that. I'm not saying go tell your boss no to everything that they're telling you to do. What I'm saying is learn to say no in an effort to protect your soul and your family. And you don't have to say yes to everything every night all the time. There's boundaries for a reason. Hopefully, if you're getting paid to do ministry, you're hired for a certain number of hours, and you're kind of sticking to that. It's very easy to get into ministry and just pour all of yourself into it, and pour all of your time into it and all of your energy, because it sounds good, but if you're left with your soul is garbage and your family is torn apart, like, what was it for?
Right. I think just that idea that ministry is a lifestyle. It's not just a career. It can be a career. I think it should be everyone's lifestyle. But when those are meshed with the career and lifestyle, it really takes anything that's up for grabs. Any time that's up for grabs, any resources, it's going to take. And so you have to be careful to guard that. I think for us, communicating in that and having seasons where we're good at it and seasons where we aren't.
Yeah. I've heard a pastor say in ministry there's seasons of intensity, and then he called them seasons of revenge afterwards. So there's, for him it was like the Christmas season was very intense. So many people get the Christmas season where it's a little bit easier and they get a couple weeks off. But for him and his church and his context, he had a lot of services he had to preach at and a lot of things to do. But then after that, he followed it with a season of revenge where he took some time off and they got to spend some family time together. And we loved that idea so much that Sarah painted this nice, pretty painting in watercolors in our house that said revenge.
So many people asked us about that.
And it was so just inconspicuous, just sitting in our kitchen.
Yep.
And it was revenge. But we know that in ministry there's going to be seasons of intensity, but we try to be intentional about these seasons of revenge where we take time and go on vacation, or take a day and go to the zoo or the park or whatever, as a family, where we can just kind of shut everything off and spend time together as a family.
Yeah. We're still figuring it out, but I think we've come a long way in 10 years.
Yep. And I mean, there's still times where I feel the pull and I'm working too much. And then there's times where you're excuse me, you're working too much.
Yeah. That hasn't been the case here yet, but I know that season will come. It always does in ministry. But here's some more things that we've learned that are more on the entertaining side. So I did not realize that ping pong paddles were lethal.
Dude.
We had, I think it was middle school. Was it?
It was middle school. Yeah, that was when we were doing 7th and 8th grade together.
Yes. There was a loft, and there was a ping pong table
Yep.
up in that loft, and there was a ping pong paddle that
Still don't know how this happened.
got thrown off.
Hashtag middle school ministry.
Yes, and the handle hit right, like, smack in the middle of this girl's forehead, and
Like the handle, like the butt of the handle, square in the middle of her forehead. Like couldn't have been more perfect.
she looked like a unicorn. I'm not even kidding. Like, it just, like, swelled up so bad, and I think I made the phone call to the mom. I think it was me, and I was like, hi, and they were great about it. They were fantastic about it, but, man, that was
Like,
awful.
I legit thought her forehead was going to explode. Like it was just swelling up and she kind of looked like a unicorn.
What you're picturing, it was worse than that.
Yes. Maybe someday we'll resurface it on social media. I still have it.
Do you really?
I do. It's in my phone. Let's see. Another funny one. If you take students to the beach, somebody's going to get sunburned. For sure, without a doubt. No matter how many times you tell them to put on sunscreen, no matter how much sunscreen you purchase, somebody's going to get sunburned. Occasionally, though, somebody is going to be on some type of prescription medication that doesn't agree with the sun and end up with swollen purple feet.
That was so awful. Yeah, I felt so bad. But yeah, her feet were huge and they were purple, and she couldn't wear shoes. Like, could not wear shoes.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny.
That was the same trip that one of our students got stung by a jellyfish, and she had refused to go in the ocean the entire week because she's like, I have seen Shark Week. I know what happens. I am not getting in the water. We finally talk her into getting into the water, and I kid you not, she gets stung by a jellyfish right away.
Yes.
We're like, oh, of course, right? Well, all was well when the lifeguard came up, and apparently he was super cute, and so she was perfectly fine.
Yep. Some say that me and him bore a striking resemblance to one another.
Did they?
Yeah.
You weren't the lifeguard.
I was not the lifeguard. Definitely not. Just saying I'm
Patting yourself on the...
a good-looking fellow is all I'm saying. Looking for some
I
affirmation.
remember the girl said that, and I was like, are you saying my husband's cute? That's
I was just
awkward.
joking. Did they say that? That's weird.
So that was funny. Let's see here. What are some other things that I learned in ministry?
Pranks always they get out of hand.
Pranks always get out of hand, and they're always fun.
One time, we're not going to tell the whole story here just for time's sake, but one time Sarah's group of girls pranked our guys, so then we pranked them back, and then they pranked us, and then we ultimately pranked them back, and I made Sarah cry. I yelled at her in front of a bunch of students and had her in tears and left her in a hotel room by herself.
That was year one.
That was,
marriage.
yep.
Year one of ministry.
Yep, you're one of everything, and she thought we were not going to make it to year 2.
I know. I was like, this is not the man I married. Like, you don't yell at me, and it's our money. And it was funny. Ask us about it sometime. But
Yeah, it's a good story. Okay, jump back to the serious ones. Learning how to have hard conversations is incredibly important. Would you agree with that, Sarah?
I would. I think it's easy, and maybe this is the Midwest in us, but it's very easy to avoid confrontation. And sometimes it's just needed. It's needed to have those conversations, sometimes with parents, with coworkers, with students, small group leaders.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on.
And I think just knowing how to approach these conversations is important too. If you go into it very graciously and understanding hey, this is something that needs to be done. I don't have to be right. This is just a conversation that needs to happen. Mm-hmm. I think that is going to be helpful, and there's more chance that everybody's going to win and it's not going to blow up. Yeah. But just understanding, hey, I need to have this conversation. I might need to prep this person for the conversation.
Right.
Can we just add something? When you set up a meeting where you know it's going to be a hard conversation, don't like text or email somebody like a week ahead of time and be like, hey, can we talk? And just leave it at that.
Yeah.
That
I
needs to
agree.
be a written rule that you can't do that.
Sometimes it can't be avoided,
Right.
but yeah, if you can give someone a heads up, that's
Like,
That's
especially if it's not bad. Like,
Oh, yeah.
tell them. Like,
Right.
hey, like, I just wanted to tell you you're doing a great job. You know, something like that. But anyway, that
Yeah,
was just kind of a pet
definitely.
peeve.
spike the nerves. I think with me, when I was running the Perk Coffee House, I felt like having those difficult conversations, I needed to do them sooner than later. And the reason for that was when I would address it right away, it would seem less severe. If I gave it more time, it would feel more of a big deal. Now, if it's something very serious, then I think you need to take your time and pray about it and make sure all your ducks are in a row and get
Right.
advice. But for the most part, there's things that if you can say it on the spot, it's going to be a lot less of this intense moment than it would be later on.
Yeah.
That's my
It'll seem
opinion.
less serious if you address it in the moment.
Right.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Something else, the idea of not being possessive over the ministry that you're running. I think that you should take ownership in your ministry, but I don't think you should be possessive.
Can you talk about that a little bit more in depth?
Yeah, there's a term in counseling called non-possessive caring, and so it's being able to care for someone without possessing them. So I care for our kids, and they're our kids, they're mine. So that is a different kind of mentality than just caring for a stranger. And so it encourages you to care in this non-possessive way. And I think that's true with ministry, where it does need to be yours. However, if it's only yours, that's going to lead to problems. So with, again, the Perk Coffee House, that wasn't my ministry. I got the privilege to start it, but I got the privilege to start it with some of my closest friends, and
Yep.
we had a blast doing it. And it was
Dude, that
just
was so fun.
it was, and we drank a lot of coffee. So that's my thing that I learned, and especially when there's a lot of times where God will ask you to hand over a ministry that He let you serve in, and that's really, really hard. But,
Yep. I just jump in and say, like, the more ministry you can hand off while you're doing the ministry, while you're leading the ministry, the easier it's going to be to not be possessive of it. So if you're a youth pastor, the more times you can get other people on stage, whether it's hosting games or communicating the message, the easier it is to step back and say, hey, look, we've got like all these other people that are running the show here. And I think that it's really easy to be, jumping back to pride, to be prideful of like, hey, I built this. Like you with the coffee shop, it's like, hey, I built this. Like, this is super cool.
look at me.
Yeah. But that when that day comes and you have to hand it over, you want, hopefully you want that ministry to continue to thrive. And that was what was cool for me to watch, as you handed over the Perk. You know, I was still on the inside every day, so I got to continue to see it thrive,
Yeah.
and be successful under Lisa's leadership at that point. And you definitely you cared for that a lot, and it was like another baby for us for a while.
It was.
But you know, it was time to hand it to somebody else, and you did good handing that off, and
That was hard.
it was hard.
I think God was knocking on my door for months before I did it. It was right after baby number 3 came home, and so I was trying to run the Perk and do counseling and home stuff, and it was just too much. But
Yeah.
it is so exciting to see it continue to do well.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think this is a good place to jump into one of mine. It's really hard to leave a ministry. Maybe we're just like sappy, relational, sentimental people, but it is really stinking hard to leave a ministry. We've had to leave 2 ministries. Well, three. I mean, counting the Perk.
Yeah.
Like you built that up and had to step away. So,
We still got to be in the community,
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
So that made it a little different. But, yeah, leaving campus life we had our going away party, which was also
Guys,
our baby.
I'm such a
gender
baby.
reveal.
I am such a crying baby at those things.
I know, I need to pull out those pictures for people to see. But, yeah, that was hard. And I think part of it, and I'm going to try to say this smoothly, but ministry has been such a gift to us. Like, I don't know what it's like for other people, but I know for us, even though there's been really, really hard times, there's been this community that's come along with ministry that we've been so blessed with. Like, I had students that just came over in the summer to hang out with me and help me with the kids. Or they wanted to go to the zoo with me. Or one summer when I was pregnant and Bowen was crazy and I needed to clean my bathrooms, they're like, we'll play with Bowen. And I got to clean my bathrooms. And for me, that was this wonderful thing.
Yeah.
It's the most exciting thing of my week.
And they didn't know it, but like you were doing ministry in those moments.
Yeah, so for me, when we had kids, I had to shift a little bit on how I did ministry, but I refused to walk away from student ministry altogether. And so what we had to do is bring the students into our lives. And that was awesome. And I think that that's how it should be. They should get to see what your life looks like, and they should be welcomed into your home often. And that worked well for us.
Yeah.
And the only hard part of that is that they were family.
Yep.
And so leaving was extra hard.
Yeah, like that was one of the things we told them, our students in Fort Wayne, our last night there, was like, you guys have helped raise our kids. Like, you guys have made a huge impact on those tiny lives. But
So true.
it that stuff just, when you intertwine, you were talking about it earlier, intertwining your life and your job and your place of worship, like all of that stuff just kind of collides. It's really hard to leave that stuff, but it's so good when you're in it.
It's such a reward too. Like, I don't even know how to explain it, and I'm just thankful for it that we've been blessed in that way. And I don't know, it's hard to get it out in words, but I think too, some of the people that I miss the most are the ones that we served alongside. So the ones that were small group leaders, or the ones that worked in the perk with me. There's a unique relationship that comes when you are serving God next to each other.
Yeah.
And I think that not everybody realizes that. And so I would encourage you guys, if you've never served in a ministry within your church, or not even within your church somewhere, I think that you will see the rewards and the benefits that come from that, specifically in the realm of relationships, because it's just different. It's different than any other relationships we have.
And taking that a step further, if you go on mission trips with a student, if you go on a mission trip with students with those other leaders, you have to develop a bond.
Yes. It's kind of like...
One of my favorite things that we did was at breakfast during mission trips, we established our leader table. And our rule was, you cannot talk to us while we're at the leader table at breakfast.
Unless you're bleeding or there's something serious wrong. But yes, that was great. And we drink our coffee and prepare for the day.
Yep. Okay, so number whatever, I don't know what number we're on, but the best ministry training is on-the-job training.
I would agree.
You would agree?
Mm-hmm.
Good, thanks.
Thanks.
So when we first started, I started doing online classes, and so most of my classes were Bible based. I mean, it was a biblical studies degree, so I wasn't taking all these ministry classes like you might get in a more traditional degree program.
Just to explain, like, what's the difference between a Bible class and a ministry class?
It's a good question. So a lot of my classes were literally, this is how you study the Bible. Here's a method. Now your assignment is to go study the Bible. So it was really, really cool. That's just kind of a sidebar. Like, I just got to study the Bible for 2.5 years, and it was awesome. But like ministry classes will like break down some of like the practical things that you deal with in ministry, and we'll run you through like, hey, here's a scenario that you might run into, and just kind of like some different like church or nonprofit like culture and organizational things that that they feel like you need to learn in those situations, and there is Bible study classes within those, but like my entire degree, I had maybe a couple ministry classes, and most of my ministry training came through actually just jumping in and having to lead a ministry. It came through going to conferences. It came through learning from people before me, above me.
Just keeping your eyes open to what other people are doing and how they're doing it. I feel like you're very curious on how things work and how people do things and why they do it, and just constantly learning in that way.
Yeah, I think you have to be, especially like as fast as things change today. I think youth ministry was pretty similar for about 30 years. And like even into like when we were in high school and just coming out of it. And then I think because of the social media culture, that's a big part of it. It's kind of shifted, and you kind of have to figure out some new things to do. And, some of those dumb games that you do have become illegal and you can't do them anymore.
They're off the list. Yes. Another thing I learned in youth ministry in the last 10 years is how much mental health goes alongside youth ministry. So when you study child development, when you study stages of change and how to help people from step 1 to step 2, all those things, I went to school because I wanted to be better at ministering to students.
Right.
That's why I went. And I know that sounds silly because I went for that reason, and yet I didn't realize how much it would collide. And just understanding people's motivations and things like that has been a game changer. And I'm going to stop now, otherwise I'll continue to talk about mental health, because there's another one that I feel like is even more important that I've learned. So
does it go along with the mental health thing?
Somewhat, yes.
Okay.
So when I was studying counseling, I learned how hands-off you really are. And it's not about you changing the person. It's about helping someone make those changes themselves, or to be motivated to make those changes themselves. And I think in church world, a lot of times discipleship is very controlled. There's a step-by-step process, or we've got to meet all these times and do all these things, and it just gets really complicated. And I think learning that in counseling to seeing that now, and so kind of the phrase that I've used to say this is to not get in students' way. And what I mean by that is to not get in their way between them and Jesus. And I think ministers of the gospel, we can do that a lot, where we can be so awesome and charming and great and teach so well and know Jesus so well and live so well that they get distracted by us. It makes me think of in the Bible when the little children run to Jesus and the disciples try to stop them. They think there's these boundaries, there's these blockers that they need to jump through these hoops.
They need to be Jesus' bodyguard.
Yeah.
To protect him from the dangerous children.
Well, that, or, just feeling like they're not able to approach Jesus, and Jesus is saying, absolutely not. They're the ones that know it the best.
Yep.
And I think for me, just seeing that of, I never want to get in a student's way between them and Jesus. I just want to be the one that says, hey, he's so awesome. Go take a look. Like, go check this out, because he is amazing. He's more than I can even explain to you. And that's something I try to focus on.
One of my favorite verses the last few years has become a verse in Hebrews, and it just talks about how we have the authority as created beings of God to approach God ourselves. And
not just ministry people.
Not just ministry people, not just pastors or elders, like anybody. If you have a pulse, like even if you don't have a pulse, I guess, I don't know, like you can approach God, and you can go to God and pray to him, and you can share your needs with him, and you can praise him and thank him, and share your wants and your desires and all those things. And like to tell that to a room full of middle schoolers and to like really believe it when you tell them, I think is super important.
They soak it up.
Oh yeah.
I feel like they feel like they just got their license. Like,
yeah.
This is awesome.
It's good stuff. Man, I feel like we've been like preaching there for a couple minutes.
Sorry.
Number 17 3/4.
Okay.
Coffee.
I think that's one of the most important ones.
I think that's one of the areas that youth ministry has changed in the last few years. I think it used to just be Mountain Dew all the time.
Yeah. Well, For me, starting out, I mean, we didn't have a building in campus life, so I'd meet students in coffee shops.
Yeah.
And that's where my addiction was formed, which I need to work on, and I'm trying. But
It's true.
coffee's just good.
Yeah. Like Sarah said, just meeting students in coffee shops, like it's such a good atmosphere to facilitate conversations, which is why we were so passionate about the perk when Sarah was starting it. Like, it creates such a cool place to say, hey, can we meet up and grab a coffee and just talk about life? And usually it's quiet and you can kind of be secluded and have a private conversation, and then coffee's delicious
It is.
and it provides fuel for your body.
I think that was our deepest one.
What's next?
What's next? I don't know if I have any more. I mean,
I got one.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, I was just giving you an opportunity to share another one.
Thank you.
Small groups,
Small groups.
100%, 1,000%. Small groups is so important to student ministry.
I agree.
Just to put students in a group of their peers that they're going through similar things. We usually have always done grade and gender-based small groups. Some people do it a little bit differently. I see value in having different ages in there. I probably wouldn't mix genders for what we go for with the small groups and trying to build that intimacy with relationships. But just to have those peers and then to be led by an adult. I love having an adult and a high schooler leading small groups.
In a middle school ministry.
In a middle school ministry. I just think they are so beneficial. I tell some of these guys that I've led before, I'm like, guys, you're in middle school right now. You have the opportunity to be a small group for the next 6 or 7 years. That's a really cool thing. Now, you can waste it, and you can come in here and not take it seriously, or you can lie about what you're struggling with, or that you're even struggling. But this could be a giant catalyst for your faith to be able to come in here. And the whole iron sharpens iron thing. You can come in here and share and be sharpened by somebody else and help somebody else through something else. And
I feel like those boys really took to that when you shared that with them. It probably wasn't perfect, but I think they took small groups more seriously than they ever had before.
yeah,
And that's important because students are lonely. All over the place, I hear students being lonely, and people are lonely in general. And I think small groups give a setting for that to change.
yep,
And I also think, for me, in small groups were introduced, I think, my sophomore or junior year of high school. And we started doing small groups. And that was the first place where I was allowed to have a voice
Yep.
in the church. And that's awesome. And I want to give that same opportunity to students.
for sure. Do you have anything else?
I think we could probably talk on and on, but
Yeah.
I think that hits a lot of what we've learned and how we've grown throughout the last 10 years of ministry.
Yeah. Sarah, what is, just off the top of your head, what is one of your number one favorite memories from our first 10 years of student ministry?
The first thing I thought of as you said that, when we were on spring break and one of our students led another student to Jesus. Now, they got lost on the beach, and how they did that, I don't know. But they got lost on the beach, but in that, she was leading her to Christ, and she gave her life to Jesus, and she ran up, both of them ran up to me pretty
Once they
much.
found their way back.
Once they found their way back, hugged me and told me all about it, and that was great, because I don't think there's anything better than leading someone to Jesus, but to be somebody that gets to disciple someone else doing it was a whole nother level for me. So that's what stood out right away. What about you?
Yeah. It's funny because the student that led the other student to Christ is in one of mine, but anytime you can baptize a student, that's just really exciting, because I think that's just a huge moment in their faith journey. But we've had a couple that just kind of stand out a little bit more. One of them was in the ocean with that student at night. Her name's Grace. We'll
Grace.
just say it.
Yeah.
But we got to baptize her in the ocean, and then another one we did at a pool. Bree, we got to baptize her. And Bree's one. I don't know if she listens, but just to see her grow in the last 7 years of her life has been
So proud of
amazing.
her.
Yeah, she's dealt with a lot and dealt with it really well. So anytime we get to baptize somebody, it's really exciting and it's an honor. But those are like two that just stand out in my mind.
Yeah.
Held it together.
You
Proud
did.
of myself.
Good job. So we're hoping for the next 10 years to be even better in ministry and
Yep.
learning from these students and hopefully leading more students to know Jesus.
Yes. We would love to hear your things you've learned from ministry.
And this doesn't have to just be anybody that's in vocational ministry.
Yeah.
I'm not in vocational ministry, but Jonathan is. That's his job. It's
Yeah.
his career. But anybody that's following Jesus, I'm sure you've learned some stuff along the way, and we'd love to hear it.
Yes. So share it with us on social media. I'm at jbaldy5 and Sarah is.
At Sarah L. Baldwin.
And then, yeah, we'd love to hear from you. We'd also love it if you shared this podcast with your friends.
Oh my goodness, that would be so nice.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And also rating and review.
Yes.
That's awesome too on iTunes and all the other places that you listen to podcasts.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
I'm going to go clean my basement.
Oh.
When the storm will stop